hear me, right? Alright, thanks. Okay, so what I'd like to sort of share with you over the next 20 minutes is basically it's a project that I actually started back when I was 17, studying computer science at A-level. I think at that point in time, I wasn't entirely sure which avenue I wanted to go down, whether I wanted to work in programming or whether I wanted to study English. And I think I was on the fence, and then I did a terrible computer science course at my college, which was like ridiculously outdated. They wanted us to program in BASIC, and all of the textbooks were talking about technology which was already obsolete like 10 years earlier. Obviously it was about like Winchester hard drives and stuff like that. And so it was all kind of pointless, and that kind of turned me against following up programming. But what I started to do was to procrastinate in my computer science classes by going on to the Alta Vista website and using their Babelfish function to translate famous poems into other languages and then back again. Now I think actually that's quite a common little sort of parlor trick these days. But yeah, at the time I didn't necessarily know that. I spent a lot of time just going through poetry line by line. You take like the first line of the poem and then kind of bounce it from French and then back into English again. And kind of look at the result. And then I would do it again through another language. So bounce, like through all these languages, and then back into English. And usually, every line would probably end up getting translated about 50 times over the course of that process. I really loved what the translators did to the poetry, because it would always take like the bones of the original poem, and then it would kind of graffiti all these kind of strange psychedelic patterns on top of the original. I mean, the original was still like down there somewhere. After all, it is like, even when it's not working properly, it is still. So let me give you an example now of. No, it's all right. It doesn't matter. All it was actually I was going to have some actual like text version, so you can kind of read along with me. But it'll be fine otherwise. So this is a poem. Originally it was The Second Coming by W.B. Yeats. Now sort of translated about 2,000 times. So let me read it to you. Our older brother moves with the bulldozers. Inside him, electric cables, gravel, duck eggs. Obstructing with a landslide of disorder, he bleaches the grass and darkens perfumes. Such a restless distributor of fluctuation. He knows the secure beliefs of villains. The ceramics of frankness will snap off once dipped in his crooked waters. The desire to personally regulate the deportation of his relations has divided the energies of the executive sector. Without the existence of words, our 2 seconds of future would be no more than an immense, opinionless, alcoholic hillock. Fine people are trapped inside these sands, flanked by lions without pity. Their views determine the surface area of the sun. Yet, hazards are packed into their slow, femoral bones, wrapped inside the nuances of birds that have offended them. Black autumn's timely other. We know that 20 centuries of sleep on a bed of river stones will displease the incubi of oscillating angles. And that rough crossbow, as our last hours are circled, is loaded with the value of Bethlehem. So, right, metaphor, whenever translated, kind of has this kind of strange catalytic effect. Okay, so like in a poem, when a poet uses a metaphor, like we know that we can call that X equals Y. Okay, all right, now like when we read the poem, we see X equals Y, and we know that X isn't Y, so we can know that a comparison is being made there. However, when you say to a translation program, X equals Y, the program goes, okay, X is Y, and it tends to kind of smash those two images together into this kind of strange new hybrid. So it's kind of as a result, if its own like literalness, it like accidentally makes something more fantastical. Sometimes I like to think of it as a little bit, the poem is a little bit like a program, and you've kind of given it to this computer to execute that program, and just by running the program, it kind of ends up kind of creating something new. Now, I made a documentary in 2011 about this, and I kind of talk about this more in my documentary, but I am fascinated with how art is often kind of made out of error. I think it's a Francis Bacon quote about how, you know, art is just perpetual mistakes, and it's just, at the end of the day, he decides which of those mistakes to preserve and which ones to kind of throw away. You know, and I quite like that about art, and, you know, and this constant making mistakes, you know, that we do. You know, like, you know, art, after all, like, is something which is non-binary. Like, in a poem, we can claim two truths, even if those two truths contradict each other. You know, we say, well, it's like this, but it's also like this. And you don't have to kind of collapse the two and kind of like work out the logic of how one kind of like upsets the other. They can both be true. You know, even every time we use a metaphor, you know, where we're lying, you know, if you say that the sun going down is a little bit like a man being etherized on a table, well, it's not true. They're not the same thing. You know, but out of those errors, out of those mistakes, out of those untruths that we make, we kind of like, rather than that stopping us dead in our tracks, it kind of propels us forwards, and we have to kind of unpack that mistake and kind of work out what it means. Let me read you like another example. Oh, great, thank you. So this was originally London 1802 by William Wordsworth. So it's now called the 1802 Londons. Immense Great Britain, you have germinated grain for dangerous living. In dead housing, water whistles from inoperative exhaust pipes. Stylographs, bridges, knives, furnaces, all unsuccessful. There are no questions of courage in the auditorium fire, and the spermatozoon are lost in ancient times. Lucky British widows on the mountainside. We are individuals of the facility. We are eased. The small flag and the pearls are returned at 10 o'clock with the method, the service, the freedom and the energy of mathematics. The first paper heart has been arrested in the centre. Now it lives in the villages, kept in a cap, a ballot from the acting general of the ocean. Clean as the luminous skies, full of splendour and release, the route through the centre is in accordance with the general's way of life, and the heart, with merry piety, is the centre in spite of oneself. The last daytime duty of the manager of a low-end family business. Now, obviously, one of the things I really love about this, of course, is the translator's own protocols, and, you know, like, and how that kind of adds this kind of strange, modernising kind of like process to it. Describing the heart as the last daytime duty of a manager of a low-end family business is was better, isn't it? It's better than Wordsworth. That's, you know, like, sorry. No, but I love that kind of constant, like, sort of like moving on, and really it's like it's talking to translators that gives me more confidence to kind of mess with canonical poems. I don't know why. I guess because translators are good at reminding me that, you know, languages are continuing. You know, like, there's a constant adaptation, kind of like modernising process that goes through whenever there's a translation is called in. You know, like, it's you know, the translator has to decide what to preserve and what to kind of modernise. And so, yeah, I enjoy seeing what happens if you kind of just like leave these poems to kind of just twist and mutate on their own. Now, I mean, I always, usually, especially when I first started presenting these on stage, I quite like the idea of presenting them as if they were almost just like written by the machine themselves, and that's not true. You know, that's you know, like, I say that a little bit like it's a performance when I say that. It's a little bit like a stage magician coming out and like wanting you to kind of like to believe that there is this kind of there is this kind of wondrous kind of like hidden text just like hiding beneath the surface of something else, that just all you had to do was just like click a button and it just like popped into the world. But that is a performance. It's not necessarily true. I like being able to kind of dine out on the sort of the wonder of those kind of things. I mean, the actual truth is that it's a lot more of a collaborative process. Like, I'm very, very much at the helm of it. I mean, I might not be the author, but I'm a very, very involved editor of the work. And every single time that the translation comes back through, I'm kind of simplifying it, and I'm harvesting kind of like the sort of like the wrong words out of it. I'm trying to help it constantly make sense every single time it goes back through. And you know, so I take responsibility as co-author. I like working in this way because it really gets around my kind of internal editor in my head, which, you know, everybody suffers from when I first start working. I get page fright quite a lot. I'm just looking at that empty, blank document, wondering what I'm going to write today. And, you know, like everybody, you know, we have internal censors that stop us having any original ideas, that tell us that we're hacks and we should not be bothered to write at all. And even in the best case scenario, you know, like, you know, anything that comes out of my mouth is stuff that at some point already came in. I'm just acting like a feedback loop for things I already know. So being able to kind of use technology in this way as a disruptive force, as a ritual, which can help kind of confuse me and kind of stimulate me by giving me all this kind of raw language to play with. You know, like, I find that like a very, very good process for collaboration. You know, like, and I think that's, but you know, like, sometimes those processes like this, where, you know, I'll be translating existing stuff and then looking at all the language. But I do other stuff as well. I'll take an existing text or radio program, and I'll cut it all up and rearrange it all. Or I'll do a technique where you look up an existing text and replace every noun or verb in the text with the word below it in the dictionary. And even though those things, they feel like set rules, that feels like a set rule. It's like, well, you know, you're always going to take 7 places below every single time you look it up in a dictionary. But you cheat, you know, you'll slightly adjust the rules for your own benefit. So there's always that human element, you know. I think the computer is very good at kind of like, for me at least, at kind of dismantling language and kind of being a disruptive force. But then there's always like a human being at the far end who's kind of like trying to kind of piece together something that seems to make sense to them and seems to speak to their subconscious. Now that last technique is an Olympian technique, and I'm a big fan of the Oulipo. I'm happy to talk about more later on if anybody's interested. But the Oulipo, yeah, they were a rule-based group of writers, you know, who started in the 1960s. As a kind of anti-surrealist group. I think they share the surrealist interests, you know, of trying to write from the subconscious, trying to get through your bourgeois mindset and kind of talk from kind of deeper inside your psyche. But whereas the kind of the surrealists were just you know, trying to draw their dreams and stuff like that. You know, the Oulipo didn't like that. They said, no, you're not free just because you paint the hat bigger than a man. That doesn't make you free. You're just obeying parts of your subconscious that you don't understand. And so the Oulipo, they tried to move their subconscious by like flooding your work with rules and making it impossible to write. And you know, that's the same sort of thing, like a disruptive force. So the technology, I think it allows me to move through language very, very fast in a very, very non-linear way, and I think that encourages, you know, like new perspectives, new kind of ideas to kind of emerge accidentally. Let me read just maybe 2 more, if that's okay. This one started off as Ezra Pound's The Station of the Metro, but just through the process of translation, I managed to get it up from sort of 2 lines up to about 25. This is a constant kind of unpacking process, particularly once I started using the Korean translator. Like, you're really looking for those new translators. That's, you know, like, that's part of the search now, is finding those ones that are just, you know, and particularly anything where you can kind of explode like a sentence case inside it, and they kind of detonate, and they just endlessly churn out longer and longer kind of like sentences. So this is it. Inside the inverted railroad of the bilge, my internal multiplicity breaks inside this illusion of a face. In the midst of a hallucination of wood and maple, it maintains its variety. I occasionally stop at locations to lecture from a chapter of hazardous colours, so fast, serious and accurate that a heavy seat develops, from which I speak a gross dead centre. the place that all colours go to go black. Something has changed inside me as I approach one of several exit ramps where maple trees are planted with hallucinatory surfaces. I know I am approaching a gap in the earth here in this capital of dangerous colours. So many starve here. It is important to talk about its dead, unripe centre. Such a heavy place must be converted. You have already placed your flowers. Now go. Cool, I'll finish with a short one. Actually, before I do that, has anybody got any questions? I've probably got a couple of minutes if anyone wants to ask me anything. If not, like, I'll be knocking about later on. And I think I'm going to be involved in the panel a bit later too. I'm also quite knowledgeable about early 90s video games, so I'll take any subjects, really, anything. It's okay. We'll talk later. The new establishment who conceive parents like new compilations, the artistic grudge your name. Deep inside a null value, it continues to liken. Yet, with resistance, our futures will follow an original design. Because of us, on this dangerous date, our lives have been converted into bathtubs, where some permeations are permitted and others are held to be illegal. In opposing these intrusions, we create additional input. For us, it holds danger, force, and reputation. In this order always. Amen. Thanks for listening.